You know this animal already. It's on the buffalo nickel, a dozen state flags, and the National Park Service's own logo. America's official national mammal, a symbol of strength and resilience stamped onto everything from ranch gates to museum exhibits. That symbol is doing a lot of work to hide what's actually standing in that field. According to Yellowstone's own Park Service, bison have injured more visitors than any other animal there. More than the grizzlies, more than the wolves, more than the cougars. That calm was never real. 2 weeks ago, a bull just like that put a grown man 8 feet in the air in under 2 seconds. Footage that's already sitting at millions of views. What almost nobody watching it stopped to ask is why that particular week. There's a 6-week stretch every single year when this same gentle national symbol turns into the most dangerous animal in the entire park, on a schedule you could set a calendar to. And it's happening again right now. Start with what you're actually looking at. An adult bull can weigh up to 2,000 pounds, about the mass of a small car, and still run nearly 3 times faster than you can, up to 30 miles per hour, according to the park's own safety guidance. That's not an animal built to lumber. It's built to close a gap you didn't think was closable, faster than you have time to reconsider standing where you're standing. But weight and speed are only the entry point into what makes this animal so mismatched against how people treat it. Bison fur is thick enough that snow landing on their backs in winter simply doesn't melt. The insulation is so effective that heat from the animal's skin never reaches the surface. It's the exact detail behind the joke you've probably seen on a Yellowstone gift shop t-shirt, "Don't pet the fluffy cows." The joke works because the fur genuinely does make them look soft, approachable, almost stuffed animal harmless. But underneath that coat is a dense slab of muscle across the shoulders and neck, built around a skull dense enough to absorb head-on collisions between 2,000-pound bulls without either animal going down. A structure engineered to survive being hit by another bison is not a structure a human body has any real chance against. And that's before the horns even enter the conversation. Wildlife researchers who study bison injuries in Yellowstone classify the resulting harm into 3 categories. Butting, where the skull makes contact. Tossing, where the animal's neck and shoulders launch a person into the air. And goring, where the horns puncture. Of the 3, goring is consistently the most severe, and unlike antlers, which most deer family species shed annually, a bison's horns are permanent, growing thicker and sharper with every year of the animal's life. Here's the part almost nobody accounts for. All of that is standing next to you in a herd, not as a single animal. For most of the year, bison move in loosely separated social groups, cows, calves, and younger bulls together, older bulls mostly solitary or in small bachelor groups on the periphery. Then the rut arrives, and that separation collapses. Mature bulls move into the mixed herds and begin what researchers call tending. A single bull attaching himself to one female for hours, sometimes days, walking beside her, blocking rivals, escalating instantly if another male gets too close. Multiple tending bulls, each individually capable of outrunning you and each, on a hair trigger, can end up within feet of each other and of anyone standing nearby. The docile herd grazing beside the road in July is not the same social structure as the docile herd grazing beside the road in April. It just looks identical from a car window, which is exactly the gap that closed on Carl Isom McDaniel 2 weeks ago. On the evening of July 10, 2026, Isom McDaniel, 65 years old, on his annual trip to the park with his grandson, was at Bridge Bay Campground on the shore of Yellowstone Lake. A bull that had reportedly already been agitated that evening, running through the campground and charging at other visitors, was somewhere nearby. A witness who filmed the encounter, photographer Mike McLeod, said afterward that Isom McDaniel had appeared to be keeping his distance. Several onlookers who later watched the footage online made the same observation, that the gap looked safe right up until it visibly wasn't. It didn't matter. The bull closed the distance in under 2 seconds and drove its head into him, launching him roughly 8 feet into the air. He came down hard enough to break his femur in 4 separate places. Emergency crews reached him at the campground, and he went into surgery. Days later, he told reporters he was finally able to stand again, with months of physical therapy still ahead. The National Park Service reviewed the incident and reached a decision that surprises most people hearing this story for the first time. No management action against the bull. No relocation, no destruction. By the park's own standard, the animal hadn't done anything abnormal. That's the detail that should actually unsettle you. This wasn't a rogue animal having an aberrant night. This was the species behaving exactly the way researchers already had it documented, on exactly the calendar they already knew about, against a man who, by the account of the person filming it, hadn't provoked anything either. So the real danger was never really about one bull. It's the gap between how far away feels safe and how far away actually is. Yellowstone's official guidance sets that distance at 25 yards for bison, about the length of 2.5 school buses, compared to 100 yards for bears and wolves. Notice which number is smaller. The animal most people rank as less threatening than a grizzly is, by the park's own rule book, allowed 4 times closer to you, and a bison can close 25 yards at 30 miles an hour in under 2 seconds, less time than it took you to read this sentence. Park guidance points to one specific signal worth watching for: a raised tail, the closest thing to a spoken warning this animal offers. But here's what even experienced guides are reluctant to say plainly. During the rut specifically, that window can collapse to almost nothing. Bulls in full rutting aggression have been documented charging with minimal or no visible buildup at all, closing the exact distance a raised tail is supposed to buy you before most people have finished registering that the tail went up in the first place. The warning system isn't broken. It was simply never built with a 2-second animal in mind. The tail isn't even the whole warning system. It's just the one people remember. The National Park Service's actual list of pre-charge signals includes bluff charging, head bobbing, pawing at the ground, bellowing, and snorting on top of the raised tail. 5 distinct signals, most of them subtle enough that a first-time visitor won't recognize them as warnings at all. Pawing looks like grazing. Bobbing looks like scratching an itch. By the time all 5 stack together into something obviously threatening, the 2-second gap has usually already started closing. You'll hear the bellowing before you understand what it means. During the rut, competing bulls produce a low, guttural roar that researchers and park guides describe the same way. A sound that can carry for miles across open valleys like Hayden and Lamar, audible long before the animal producing it is even visible. It's not aimed at you. It's a challenge broadcast to every other bull within range, a sound built to travel exactly as far as a bison's territory does. But standing inside that broadcast range means standing inside a landscape where multiple competing bulls already know exactly where each other are, and where you are is, from their perspective, incidental. This is also the season responsible for what park regulars call a bison jam, vehicles backed up for miles, sometimes for hours, while a herd decides, on its own schedule, whether the road belongs to it or to the traffic. It's treated as a charming inconvenience, the kind of thing people film and laugh about. What that footage rarely shows is the underlying fact making it possible. These are wild animals that migrate up to 70 miles between summer and winter range, moving through a park built for human sightseeing as though the pavement were simply one more strip of grassland that happened to be in the way. The jam isn't the bison adapting to you. It's you, briefly, existing inside their commute. Carl Issa McDaniel is not an outlier, and that's the part the viral video doesn't show you. A federal review published by the CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report examined bison-related injuries in Yellowstone across a 15-year stretch, from 2000 through 2015. In that window, bison injured 25 people. 22 of them needed medical treatment on top of first aid. 12 were hospitalized. The single worst year in that entire dataset was 2015, when 5 people were hurt in 12 months. Then, just 2 weeks before Issa McDaniel's attack, a 12-year-old was injured near Mud Volcano, 6 miles from Yellowstone Lake. And 3 years before that, in July 2023, A 47-year-old woman from Phoenix was gored in the chest and abdomen near the Lake Lodge cabins after she and a companion spotted 2 bison and turned to walk away. The bison charged anyway. She was airlifted out by helicopter. None of these people share an obvious mistake. They weren't feeding the animals. They weren't ignoring posted signs. Several were actively trying to create distance when the attack happened. One longtime Yellowstone wildlife guide put the yearly total plainly. Bison injure about half a dozen people most years, while black bears injure roughly 1 person every other year. And wolves, reintroduced to the park in the 1990s, have injured no one since. What even researchers who've spent decades in the field can't fully explain is the exact moment a specific bull crosses from tolerating a distance to closing it. The same 25 yards that keeps you safe from one bull on one afternoon can be the exact distance that gets someone else launched into the air by a different bull an hour later. Nobody has fully mapped what separates those 2 outcomes, and the animal isn't going to signal the difference in advance. One number matters more than any other in that federal review, and it deserves an honest explanation instead of a comfortable one. Of the 25 documented injuries, none were fatal. That's not luck in the way people usually mean it. Bison aren't predators. When a bull tosses or gores a person, he isn't hunting. He's removing a threat from his space, and once that's done, in every recorded case, he disengages instead of continuing. Every injury also happened somewhere emergency crews could reach within minutes, in one of the most heavily trafficked, closely monitored parks on the continent. That's the why. Here's the what if. Goring, the horn puncturing the body, the injury classification researchers rank as most severe of the 3, has, in every documented case, missed the structures that would have made it fatal: the neck, the chest cavity, the femoral artery. A horn strike a few inches higher, or a toss that puts a person down on pavement or rock instead of open grass, uses the exact same amount of force already proven capable of breaking a femur in 4 places. Nothing about the mechanism changes. Only the landing does. The streak isn't a rule this animal is following. It's an average holding so far on physics that could go either way the next time. If the danger is this well documented, you'd expect people to keep their distance. The opposite keeps happening, on camera, in public, over and over. In May 2023, a woman was filmed standing directly over a bison lying in the grass at Biscuit Basin, snapping a selfie inches from its head. The witness who recorded it said the group watching from the parking lot knew exactly what they were looking at. If the animal so much as stood up too quickly, she would likely be gored, and the bison, having done nothing wrong except exist near a tourist with a phone, would probably be the one destroyed for it. In May 2026, footage from a park footpath showed one man turning his back on a grazing bison to pose for a photo, well inside the mandatory 25-yard boundary. And within minutes, a second group of tourists walked up and did the exact same thing, as if his safety had somehow proven theirs was guaranteed too. An entire social media account, followed by hundreds of thousands of people, exists solely to document strangers doing this same thing at national parks across the country, week after week. None of this is ignorance. Every one of those visitors passed a sign. What's actually happening is closer to a kind of borrowed confidence, watching someone else get close and survive it, and mistaking their luck for a fact about the animal. Isom McDaniel didn't get that lucky. But even he, from a hospital bed days later, described what happened to him less like an attack and more like a warning that could have gone much further. He could have stomped on me. He could have gored me. He could have done almost anything to take my life. And he did not do so, he told reporters. McLeod, the photographer who filmed it, said it looked to him like the older man had absorbed the worst of it protecting his grandson. The first thing Isom McDaniel asked, the moment he could speak, was whether the boy was all right. The bison never touched the child. Whether that was restraint, luck, or something in between is exactly the kind of question this animal never answers in advance. There's a deeper irony buried underneath all of this, and it changes how the coin in your pocket looks once you know it. At the start of the 19th century, Somewhere between 30 and 60 million bison moved across North America in herds so large that early explorers described the horizon itself as alive with them. By 1889, deliberate industrial-scale slaughter, driven as much by a campaign to starve indigenous nations who depended on the herds as by the commercial hide trade, had reduced the entire species to somewhere between 325 and 541 animals, not thousands, low hundreds. The species that would eventually become the official national mammal of the United States came within a single bad season of not existing at all. One of the last wild herds to survive that collapse did it by hiding in the one place large-scale hunting hadn't fully reached yet, the interior of what had just become Yellowstone National Park. The same park where, this month, one of their descendants put a man in a hospital bed. Conservation efforts over the following century clawed the species back. Private ranchers, federal protection, and dedicated breeding herds slowly rebuilding the population from the ground up. Today, roughly 500,000 bison exist across North America, though only a fraction of that, somewhere around 30,000, live in wild, genetically managed conservation herds rather than commercial ones. Yellowstone's own population fluctuates between about 4,000 and 6,000 animals, direct descendants of the handful that outlasted near extinction, now numerous enough and confident enough to treat the park's paved roads and campgrounds as home territory instead of a last refuge. None of this is incidental to the ecosystem it's part of either. Bison are what ecologists call a keystone species. Their grazing carves the grassland into a mosaic of short and tall patches that supports far more plant diversity than uniform grazing ever could, and the wallows they dig collect rainwater into small pools that amphibians and dozens of other species depend on in a landscape that doesn't offer much water to begin with. Prairie dogs preferentially burrow in the short grass bison leave behind. Birds line their nests with tufts of shed bison fur. A grassland with bison in it is functioning the way it evolved to function for 10,000 years. A grassland without them isn't. We took the animal we almost erased and turned it into a symbol of resilience. We put it on currency, on flags, on federal letterhead. What nobody updated, anywhere in that branding, was the warning label. Go back to that coin in your pocket. The bison stamped on it stands still, facing forward, permanently calm, because a coin can't run 30 miles an hour, and it definitely can't close 25 yards in under 2 seconds if you've misjudged the distance. The animal it's modeled after can do both. It has done both twice in the past month alone, to people who were certain they already knew how far away was far enough. Millions of people will drive through that park this summer. Most will see bison from a car window, exactly the way most of the internet saw Carl Isom McDaniel, as a calm shape in a field, grazing, entirely unbothered by the traffic backed up around it. A small number of those visitors will get out. Fewer still will close the distance far enough to find out, in person, which version of the animal happened to be standing there that afternoon. The one that tolerates the crowd, or the one that's already decided the crowd has gotten too close. There's no way to tell which one you're looking at from 25 yards away. That's the whole point of the warning system, and it's also the whole point of this video. The tail, the bellow, the pawing, all of it exists because the animal genuinely doesn't want the confrontation either, right up until the 2 seconds where it does. That symbol was never lying to you exactly. It was just never going to be the one to warn you.